Hey guys, it's YB. Welcome to another year of behind the scenes of Without a Recipe. I do this every year to go over my behind the scenes editing of Without a Recipe, and this year we were back with some new guests and some new editing styles to follow. Also, you can see I have made over my office. You might have seen my Instagram reel or TikTok or YouTube shorts, and now I can't wait to continue editing in this beautiful room. But this year I edited 2 episodes of Without a Recipe, Oreos and sandwiches. Hey guys, before we continue, as my Without a Recipe behind the scenes tradition at this point, let me go over some Korean skincare with you. So thank you Mary&May for sponsoring this video. We're gonna do a full morning skincare routine with Mary&May and see how they feel on my dry skin. Mary&May is a clean beauty skincare brand that puts skin safety first. They sent me a complete care routine for sensitive dry skin, which I have during winter, so I can show you guys. Now the important thing about Mary&May is that they only use safe, clean ingredients. Their ingredients have the highest quality and provide transparent product information so you know what you're buying. Also, all their products are cruelty-free, meaning that they're never tested on animals. We are going to get started with the cleanser. This is their vegan low pH hyaluronic gel cleanser. Now if you're curious about their ingredients, they have everything listed on their package. So this cleanser is optimized for your skin to maintain a healthy skin balance while gently and effectively removing makeup and impurities from pores. I don't feel any tightness, any dryness. It's actually very soft and just clean feeling. Step 2 is essence. Look at this beautiful bottle. This is their Mary&May Vegan Blackberry Complex Cream Essence. This essence is full of blackberry complex, strengthening the rough skin barrier and providing non-drying moisture. My skin feels so moisturized already just from that one essence. Then we have the Idebenone Blackberry Complex Serum. Idebenone is a raw material developed as a treatment for Alzheimer's disease and a powerful skin antioxidant. Blended with blackberry, the antioxidant synergetic effect is maximized. It's definitely more of a sticky substance, so it really sticks to the skin, and as you can see, it's a bit more shiny now, I think, from before, and it looks so glowy and healthy already, and that was just a serum. Alright, it's now time for the cool part, the moisturizer. It comes with this little spoon. This is the Mary&May Idebenone Blackberry Intense Cream. We're going to scoop it out. So it holds very well, so it's a thick cream. Wow, it's so soft. It actually, I do feel like I'm putting butter on my face. Do you see how glowing my face is right now? Now for this cream, its efficiency has been verified through human clinical tests. After 1 application, skin moisture lasts 48 hours, and after 5 uses, skin moisture improved up to 10 years of dead skin cells. And it's perfect for anyone with dry skin during winter seasons because it just keeps the moisture locked in there. Now we can't forget the eyes. This is an eye cream. This one has been also verified through human clinical tests, and after 2 weeks of use, the skin tone around the eyes, spots, freckles have been proven to improve. Lastly, we cannot forget sunscreen. This is their vegan Peptide Bakuchiol sunstick. You just kind of glide it on. This sunstick contains 10,000 ppm of Bakuchiol, which is a substitute for retinol and safer for sensitive skin. And I've applied sunscreen without touching my face. And now we're done. My skin feels so clean and moisturized. I mean, I feel like I could go out like this in the cold weather and still be fine and not worry about my skin drying. Now, all these products are specifically designed so that even those with sensitive skin can use them without irritation. So click on my link down below to check out Mary&May, and now back to editing. So originally I was going to release behind the scenes Oreos, and I recorded the whole time lapse of me editing it and everything. I'm still gonna show you guys, but I ended up not wanting to release that behind the scenes because there were some schedule conflicts, and I ended up not being able to finish the notes on Oreos, which meant that another editor had to take over the finishing of my Oreos episode because I had to move on to the next episode, sandwiches. And while it still came out great, I didn't feel like I should do a behind the scenes on something that I didn't do completely the whole thing of. So that's why I decided to do sandwiches instead, because this is the one I really edited from start to finish. Now there are gonna be many repeating things of my previous behind the scenes, like how I organize the folders, how I color code everything, but there were some new things I learned this year. I think I really learn new things every year, which is really cool, even for a repeating show like this. And this year, the focus was restructuring. So we are gonna go over some things where I had to change the entire order of the cooking, change the order of what happened in real life to make it fit the edit better, and that's gonna be the focus of of this episode. Being that sandwiches are such a diverse thing where anyone could make a different sandwich that's completely different than the other, putting these all together and reorganizing them was the hardest thing to do in this episode, and that taught me a lot this year. Alright, so let's get started. This is how my desktop looks right now, and this is my WAR drive. You can see that I've edited Oreos and sandwiches here, and I'm also editing some interstitial footage for WAR Live right now. They're doing it without a recipe live. It's gonna be really exciting. So that's what I'm working on, these 3 things that are dotted. You guys already know this format from all the years I've done it before. It's the same. I have my projects footage folder where all the raw footage goes in, and here are some downloads that I downloaded separately, like their older Try Guys footage and some Mythical Kitchen footage. So let's go into my Premiere project. It's down right here. Here's Adobe Premiere that we use. So this is how the project looks right now, and we are gonna go obviously from the very first cut to the last cut, which was cut 5 in this case. So here is the project that I got from the beginning, where it is just all the synced footage of the pre-thoughts, all the cooking, with the bread making in the middle right here, and the judging, and the experts, which was Mythical Kitchen in this case, as well as the B-rolls of all the food that they made. So as always, we turn this into selects, where we go here, and I've pulled all the selects up and down. So once I've pulled all the selects, we get to cut 1, which is the very first rough cut. We have approximately 6 days to do this, and those 6 days aren't all editing. It's about 2-3 days of pulling selects, which takes that long because you gotta watch over 10 hours of footage, and then by usually the 3rd or 4th day, we start to actually put the cuts together. So within that 3 days, you can't put that much together anyway, so I end up trying to get almost halfway through the cooking by cut 1. But in this case with sandwiches, I was able to get pretty far. I was a little behind schedule, but I told Rachel if I have 1 more day, I can actually finish all of the cooking. So she said, okay, take 1 more day, and I ended up being able to finish the entire cooking session within 6 days. So for cut 1, I made it very simple. This is a rough cut, so I haven't done any cold open, which is the intro. So I have just the regular intro of the war sequence here, but not the cold open where you do like all the quick shots of what's gonna happen and all the funny moments. We didn't do that at this part. And you guys know I love to color code, so here's where it really shines. I like to color code each clip by the individual who's in it or what section they're doing. So for example, when they are talking just direct to camera, and this is Keith, so it's his color, so I color coded it blue, light blue. And for Marissa, I color coded it yellow, for Eugene, violet, purple, and for Zach, green. This makes it really easy to see just from the timeline without having to watch the whole thing to see where they are at and what I'm missing. And you can see in between these direct to camera interviews, there's clips of the cooking section. So I think this year we really started emphasizing the structure of WAR. We always had structure coming before, but this year was when I really got the notes of, okay, let's make sure we end on a joke. Let's make sure there's joke in between or a funny moment between. So it took a little more time to put it together because sometimes there's no joke, you know, maybe there's no funny moments to put in there. So then you kind of have to bring it out from different areas. So after Keith explained what he's making in this episode, they wanted a joke from Keith. So then I added the joke from him drinking the beer. Then it goes to Marissa. I didn't find any jokes from her at this time, so I just put her opening a bag of flour and what she was gonna do next, and then that was the transition into what she was gonna do. After that, we go right into the expert demonstration of how they're cooking. Here, I've done the color coding again so you can see what's going on. The color codes of the experts, the chefs explaining what they're doing, is in mango color. So you can see the mango is kind of spread throughout the whole timeline. Now the cooking you can see is in 2 colors. It's hot pink color and the blue color. Since I recorded a time lapse of the Oreos editing, I'm gonna show you guys right here what I did for the first cut. Basically, how I put this together is I divide the 2 sections, which means the 2 guys cooking here and 2 guys cooking here. I have them different colors, and then I start editing them individually with breaks in between where I know a joke is gonna go in or when an expert thought it's gonna go in. So you can see there's gaps in between when I edit them, and then after it's all edited individually separately, I start putting it together like Tetris. So it becomes like a game where you put the puzzle together. Ideally, what the guys are doing is matching what the expert just explained. So if the expert has just explained how to make the dough, the guys are making the dough in that case. So the first part of the cooking was just making the dough for the bread. So that is done. So the entire section until here, so you can see where the color changes. So about here to here was the first part of the cooking. And now we go into this bread proofing section. This was really short. It's actually the bread proofing section, and they filmed it in the middle of wedding cakes episode because they film a lot of episodes in multiple days, so they didn't really make the bread the same day as when they made the dough. The dough had to proof. So they were proofing the dough for sandwiches episode while they were filming wedding cakes episode. And after that, they all meet back here, all 4 of them together, to finally bake the bread. So this section is interesting because it's not as divided as the others. It's not 2 and 2 at a separate time. They're all together and they are just putting the bread in the oven, which at the end of the day is a really quick section, right? All they had to do was put the bread in the oven and that was it. But we still wanted to make this interesting and fun to watch. And here's some decisions that I made for this episode specifically that may not be the same with other episodes. This was a special case in sandwiches that the expert chefs were actually YouTubers. So Josh and Trevor from Mythical Kitchen are YouTubers. They know how to act on camera. In a lot of cases with a recipe, the experts have never been on camera before. These are chefs who focus on cooking. So their sections are usually cut very fast, cuts very short, so that they are only showing the cooking part, what they need to show. For this episode though, I decided to show more of Trevor and Josh because they were funny on their own. They were very charming and I thought that would be interesting, especially for a lot of people who are also fans of Mythical Kitchen. So that's why in this episode particularly, there are more chefs interacting with each other and some moments that were just them together rather than always cutting back to the Try Guys and losing the charm of Josh and Trevor. And then we go into day 2 where the bread is already made and they are assembling their sandwiches. This section ended up being quite tough to edit and I will explain why. Sometimes the thing you think is going to be the simplest is the hardest. This is the part I was talking about where I had to rearrange the orders of the cooking so that the guys were doing the same thing at the same time. Sandwich can be really so diverse and they were all making such different things. So while let's say if you're making a cake, you can always put the cake topping together, the frosting together, and you can kind of group everything together. But with sandwiches, some people choose to make their sauces, some people choose to just make protein, some people are focusing on vegetables. They were all doing such different things, and Marissa was making a jam which no one else was doing, and again they were all doing these things at different times because they weren't told to do it in a particular order. So that's why with sandwiches the editing ended up being a little more difficult than some of the other more complex food episodes I've done, because here in sandwiches things are so simple that they can do so many different things, if that makes sense. So here's a good example. We started with Josh and Trevor focusing on how the bread came out, right? You want to examine the bread because that's the last thing we saw, baking the bread. So when we transition into this new day of cooking, we want to see how the bread was made. And we have a matching shot here with Zach examining his bread and Eugene cutting his bread open and showing it to the audience. Same for Keith and Marissa, they're opening their bread. However, these were not all in order. Actually, Eugene, if you look closely, you can see some carrot pieces here. It shows that he was already cooking. That's because when he cut the bread, this came at the very end of the cooking. He did look at the bread in the beginning, but he didn't really cut it or make any comments about it. But everyone else was making comments about their bread and they were showing how it looked like. So at the end, when he was about to assemble the sandwich was when he actually cut open his bread, and that it matched with the experts looking at their bread. We had to do a lot of these throughout. Here, Trevor and Josh are making a turkey club sandwich, which none of the guys are doing. So again, the ingredients gonna be all different for all the guys. We don't know how to group it together. But at least we know they're making the sauce because they're making aioli. Now, none of the other guys were making aioli, so we couldn't put that there. But some are making sauces and some are making dips, butters. So we pulled Eugene making his uni butter, which again, if you can see, there's carrots all over. So you can tell that this came after cutting the vegetables, which is at the end. But we put this again here forward so that the uni butter making the butter, it's kind of a similar thing as a sauce, so we put that right here. And for Marissa, her sauce was peanut butter other than the jam. The jam comes later, but peanut butter was also the star, and she made her own peanut butter. And for Keith, he made mustard. This was not in the beginning of the cooking at all, but I put it right here so that all the sauces were grouped together. And the next section I grouped together was protein. So Eugene is making lobster and scallops. Zach is making beef. Keith was frying chicken. And again, the chicken didn't come until the very end. He started frying chicken right before he assembled a sandwich in real life. But I put that way ahead here so that they are doing protein at the same time. Now Marissa, she didn't have any protein on her peanut butter and jelly sandwich, so I chose her fruit. The custard fruit turns it into jam, so I created that as her protein sequence, while Keith continues to fry his chicken and the jam is made. There were some things I couldn't put out of order just because of the way they were talking. So Zach also makes queso cheese. If I was doing it really correctly, I should have put the queso cheese with the sauce section, but the way things were done, it didn't make sense because he makes that mistake once the beef is done, and you can clearly see in the footage that the beef is already done by the time he makes his queso. And if you guys watch the video, you know he forgets to put milk in it, so he messes up the first time. In order to make this queso cheese not so random after all the protein, I put something else that would match him, which was Keith making his beer cheese. So Keith decided to put beer and some cheese together to make beer cheese, and this came perfectly after the queso so that there was a tiny bit of a cheese section, even though this was separate from the sauce section. Now it's time to match up with the experts again. Josh and Trevor are now seasoning their vegetables because they're putting vegetables in the sandwich. Now, who's making vegetables in this case? Eugene. So we paired it with Eugene bringing out his veggies, and Eugene's the only one who used vegetables, so he was the only little section here. But after that, we continued with Zach's queso, and you can see why I had to place the queso here, because him and Eugene were talking at the time about how to fix the queso, and Eugene at the time while he was talking was making his veggies. So then Zach realizes he has to put milk in his queso, and then he makes it correctly. And then with the experts, we really get into assembling the sandwich. This is another part where I said I wanted to focus on the charm of the chefs this time instead of cutting back and forth with the guys every time. In some of the other episodes with other editors, you might notice that they cut from the chef doing one thing and then the guy doing that thing, and the chef doing one thing, the guy doing that thing, like back and forth, back and forth. And I could have done that with the sandwiches, like putting the bread first, then the guy's putting the bread, putting the sauce on, then the guy's putting their condiments on. But that might have made it too chaotic for me, in my opinion. I wanted to focus on the charm and humor that the two chefs we have here were bringing, only because they were expert in the YouTube sense. They were YouTubers, they knew how to keep it funny and entertaining, so I kept this whole section by themselves so that they could make the sandwich without being interrupted by the guys in between. Some people might prefer one over the other, but I like to keep it more calm and focused on the food making than chaotic, unless it gets really chaotic like when Jared was there.
Yo, I made icing! Sorry, am I yelling too loud? Yeah, you are.
And see, I wanted to end this sequence with the beautiful shots of the sandwiches with beautiful music climaxing and matching that music. I wanted it to really feel like a cooking show in this case. And then the cooking section is finished. This is how far I got in 6 days with the first cut. And I sent this out, got some notes, and started working on the second cut. The judging section is a lot easier to edit because it's pretty straightforward. There is no reason to change order or anything. I don't need to group anything. It's just literally in order. And it only looks this crazy because there's so much audio going on here. As you can see, I'll pull this up. There are 9 audio tracks. That's why this whole thing looks so big. But this is probably the simplest edit you can do in the whole without a recipe. So let me show you the difference between cut 1, cut 2, and cut 3. This is cut 1 timeline. This is cut 2, so you can see right here, cut 1 ended here before and we have the judging. And cut 3, what do you see different? There's a lot of graphics up here, right? All these things up here are graphics. So I start editing the graphics in by cut 3 after doing all the notes. These are the things you see on screen, like these texts showing what they're doing, lower thirds for the guests, as well as graphics of what they're making. So here we're working on perfecting the video. We got a lot of notes on how to fix certain things. Previously in cut 1, you remember after Keith was explaining what he's doing, we went from him drinking the beer to Marissa just grabbing the flour, and then we started with her section. I got a note from the guys that we wanted more of a joke to put in there before Marissa starts. But you cannot edit something that's not there. So after scrolling through the footage for a while, I ended up finding a section that comes later actually, where Marissa is talking about how she feels like she's been here forever, how she has been on this episode forever when it's just the beginning. So I thought that's okay, that's a good enough joke to put in here, and I put that right there, and it ended up working. So sometimes you have to look for jokes that are not there, and the easiest thing to do is kind of scroll through the thing, make sure it's not as obvious that it's from a later section, and just kind of puzzle it together. So there is cut 4 and cut 5, and you might not see huge differences in the cuts. That's because we do very minimal notes in between. And then we replace the voiceovers, meaning that down here where I put my voiceovers, so in the beginning of the edit, I ended up writing all the script myself and I record them. And after the voices are replaced and all the notes are done, this is ready to go to Will, our post supervisor, to get colored and finished. We were supposed to have s'mores come out before sandwiches, but with some scheduling conflict because one of our editors got sick, we ended up having to put sandwiches before s'mores. So we had to do some last minute edits, and I think it still worked out okay, and s'mores just came out actually. And this is why also my Without a Recipe behind the scenes is this week, because sandwiches was supposed to be last Saturday. But things happen, you know, with people getting sick, you cannot just push out an episode when it's not ready. And luckily sandwiches was ready in time, so we were able to publish this before s'mores. Alright, so that was the behind the scenes of editing Without a Recipe sandwiches of 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I'll try to respond as much as possible. And a huge shout out again to the entire team at Try Guys who makes this happen. Our post team who worked on this Without a Recipe this year were our senior editor Devlin, as always, the OG, and our editors Skylar and Elliot. They did a great job on s'mores. And Will and MJ, who did all the coloring and finishing the projects, they did an amazing job and it really came out great. I hope you guys enjoyed the season this year. Now I'm going to be working more on the Without a Recipe live elements. I'm excited to show some of my editing skills on those, and you guys who are attending will be able to see some judging interstitials that I made to go in between the live set changes. So thank you guys so much for watching. Happy holidays and see you next time. Bye!